Hi everybody, welcome back to the Proactive Business Network. I'm Jimmy Young. Joining me on out here at our Marlborough, Massachusetts studio is Pete Cronan, a longtime football color analyst for the Boston College Eagles on their radio side. You've worked with a lot of nine different partners. I'm not quite sure what that means, but you know what? Some of them have gone on to do some great things.
Some have.
And your most recent one is John Meter-Perrell.
The Meat and I have been together almost 8 years.
Yeah, which is great. Real good guy.
Very good.
Another Metro West product.
Yep.
And comes from a great family as well. Peter, there's been a lot of news about football over the last year. You are a former professional football player. I mentioned former, right? Back in the day, when getting your bell rung was part of the deal as a professional football player. Certainly over the last 10 years or so, there's been a lot of research about the trauma that the brain takes during a normal practice, during a normal game in football. Mm-hmm. And it's the ongoing effects that really, I think, cause a lot of the trouble, whether it's concussions or eventually moving into the CTE that may cause Lou Gehrig's disease or dementia and all these things. Do you have any regrets knowing what you know now about football, about what you went through when you were younger?
No. I think if I had to do it over again, I'd do it a little bit differently. The thing that I think is appropriate to mention is that football is drawing a great deal of attention, but it didn't start as an NFL player. It started when I was in college, and I had the same types of experiences when I was in high school, contact sport. It also isn't limited to football. It's soccer, it's hockey. There are a lot of contact sports out there that are, there's the frequency of concussion, of brain trauma, is remarkably high. So it isn't like football is this bad sport. It's the nature of these collection of sports that involve contact. I don't regret the experience, but I'm not suffering from ALS or Parkinson's disease or dementia or any of the quote unquote conditions that are byproducts of brain trauma at this point in time. Now that may change. I've been tested, and I certainly have some symptoms, but the symptoms are well within the range of a person at my age. The question, of course, is what happens at the end of my life, the last 4 or 5 or 10 years, and does what I did to myself as a young man accelerate any of these conditions, which really do have a pretty nasty impact on quality of life? I'm prayerful and hopeful that that's not the case. It's a possibility. The fact of the matter is, my experience as an athlete was life-changing. And although I may get to a point at the end of my life where I may contemplate regret, I would have to reflect upon my whole life and the impact that being an athlete had on my life's experience. And it would be very selfish of me to be regretful. Now, like I said, I pray and I hope that I die on my sleep, warm and with all my marbles. But who knows? None of us have a guarantee.
But it's interesting, you still learned, you educated yourself about what was learned about this in the past with Robert Stern's group and Chris Nowitzki's group from Harvard. And I even think there's a woman from Framingham, a doctor from Framingham, because I read League of Denial, enough for you to go out and get tested.
Oh yeah, well, part of the exercise too is, it's two types of people who go to the doctor and people who don't.
Right.
Why do people go to the doctor? Because they want to know, and they want to get ahead of it, and they want to fix it.
Right.
I tend to be like that. You got other people that go to doctors for years and just hopeful. If I go to the doctor and they find something wrong. That was my mother's attitude.
Right.
They look for stuff. I said, well, they're supposed to.
That's the whole point.
So I'm one of those guys. Okay, I get something. Okay, I'm very body sensitive, and so I wanted to go find out where the heck I stood. And so plus I was involved in some testing and ongoing testing now, which is kind of there are a couple of studies that I'm involved in that are monitoring our evolution, our collective evolution, and as former players, and one of the things that is reoccurring is, you need a baseline. So rather than go in blindly before I was surprised, I went through my own medical. My doctor, my primary physician, got a referral to a neurologist and went through a battery of tests. And like I said, so I had a good idea going in. This was probably 5 years ago. Good idea going in that what I was up against, what they were going to find out, and it was consistent. The findings were pretty consistent.
Within the last 24 hours, a 24-year-old linebacker from the San Francisco 49ers, after an outstanding rookie season, Chris Borland, decides to call it quits. It's shaken up a lot of people. It's also, I think, been a great way for the public to understand the severity of what happens in football. I give this guy a lot of credit for standing up and saying, you know what? Been there, done that, reached my goal. I want a quality of life. I'm walking away. How do you view what he did in the last 24 hours?
We're going to have the benefit of doing a real life comparative analysis, and you get two ends of the spectrum. He's one end. The other end is the guy we all know and love, is Wes Welker. And we're going to have the benefit, I'll call Wes is 10, 12 years old, 10 years older than this guy, maybe. I don't know.
He's 33. I think Wes is 33, so 24, about 10 years.
About 10 years, okay. These guys are going to age simultaneously.
Yeah.
One will have gone through what Wes has gone through, and one will have gone through the alternative.
Right, but he had 2 concussions, I understand, in high school too.
The major question: how many did Wes have?
Quite a few.
Right. I'm not a wagering man, but if I was, I'd wager that the quality of life at the end or later in life is probably going to be much more less desirable for Wes Welker.
Right.
I don't know, but we don't know. That's kind of the great mystery is what we don't know at this point, but they were paying attention to it. I think that the quality of life, I believe there'd be a remarkable difference in terms of how those two guys age.
It'll be interesting to watch. Football continues to be the #1 sport in America. Over the last year, the NFL has not exactly been the great institution that they are as far as public relations go. I think Roger Goodell even admitted at the Super Bowl he can't wait for this year to get over with. I mean, I don't know who guided him through that subject or that statement, but not probably the best thing to say, but he did it. He was honest. I actually give him credit for being so honest. And yet, football survives. It's still the #1 sport. More people watch the Super Bowl this year than any other sporting event or any other television event in history. What's the future of the NFL? What do you think is going to happen with I'm going to throw the NCAA into this as well, because right now the NFL sits back and lets the NCAA provide them with their workforce.
Not a bad deal.
It's a great deal for the National Football League. It's a bad deal for college football players. You're in the college arena. You know what happens to these kids, whether they are getting a quality education or not. We can debate that. We can talk to the kids at North Carolina about that as well. Will we ever see college football players paid a stipend to perform for their colleges because their colleges are reaping millions of dollars off their talents and abilities? And will the NFL finally understand that, at some point they should probably start their own developmental league? A couple of things in there. I just get your opinions on some of them.
Paying the athletes is a real issue, real hot button, because when you talk about college football, what flashes into your head? The SEC, the national championship game, the Orange Bowl, the Rose Bowl. There's 130 some odd Division I schools. And I don't know the number exactly, but I saw the number last football season. 50 of them make money.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say about 14 or 15. Actually, I just saw a report on this.
Okay, so I'm way off then.
There are, yeah.
Okay, so
make money, right?
So the balance of them are in a position where, in a place like Boston College is a very good example. Football as an entity, as it relates to their relationship with the ACC, and the ACC's their negotiating power as a power conference. There's a substantial stipend that comes to each one of those member schools.
Right.
The money-making sports,
Yep.
primarily football,
Yeah.
but basketball is a big money maker.
So March they make more money in college sports than anything.
Then
Yep.
so you got this is a major conference with two big money making as an entity, the ACC. But when you look at the way Boston College does it, is they get this. That's in the added benefit or the added component there is putting seats in the seats.
Right.
That is critical to a place like Boston College. It's like a tipping point
Interesting.
where you have
You have television money and you have attendance
conference.
money.
You have television money, conference money,
Right.
and then you have attendance money.
Right.
The attendance money is the wild card. So then there's a lot of pressure to deliver a quality product. And BC is not the only game in town around here. That's good or bad, whether they like it or not. A lot of competition for that sports dollar. So there's almost added emphasis or importance on quality product to get people to say, I'm not going to go to Foxborough on Sunday. I'm going to go to Chestnut Hill on Saturday, or pick you where you want. And it's a great metropolitan city. That's wonderful, but there's a lot of distractions. It's not
The only thing in town.
It's not Clemson, North Carolina, which is a
Right.
great place.
Right.
But Clemson is it.
That's right.
It's it. And they come from miles around.
Right.
And you say, wow, what a difference. And well, there is a difference. It's
Right.
a huge difference.
Absolutely.
And the thing about when you have a revenue generating sport, by virtue of the relationship with the ACC, look at a place like BC. I think they've got 32 or 33 varsity sports. These are non-revenue called Olympic sports.
Right.
How do they get funded?
And they get funded through the football team.
They get funded through the ACC Alliance.
Right, or wherever they could get.
So that depletes the revenue stream. Well, and of course they're going to give BC football the priority in terms of dollars spent in budgeting, but they're constantly shaving the corners off the box to take care of these other sports. Long explanation, I apologize. But that ties into when you begin to compensate athletes. You can't compensate just football players. You have to compensate all your varsity athletes, all your NCAA athletes.
But why? If you only have a revenue sport.
Because the NCAA says that.
Well, the NCAA says a lot of things that are wrong. They do.
Well, that's the great barrier right now.
Right.
What will happen is if the NCAA does say you can pay your athletes X living expenses, but you have to also pay all the non-rev sports or your Olympic sports. What that does is a couple things happens. The rich get richer because you get these big programs, and Texas is the one I think pushing the most. And they get very deep coffers. They say that the Vatican's basement is lined with gold. I think the lower level of the stadium over there in Texas is lined with gold too. I mean, there's a long history of money in that place, and so they've got deep pockets. They would not be affected negatively by this implementation of this concept. A place like BC would probably have to eliminate half their varsity sports,
Right.
which is that's not
Counterproductive.
It's not part-
counterproductive. on
And
that.
and again, that's a generalization. I don't
Right.
know.
No, I
Now,
know.
so and BC is a place because now you take that same scenario, and you go to a MAC team, Mid-American Conference team,
Yeah.
that doesn't have a big stick when it comes to negotiating TV contracts.
Right.
Has a lot of small stadiums. They're very competitive. Don't get me wrong. But it's not a big revenue channel. Well, the NCAA comes in and says, "Hey, listen, you got to pay your players." It affects they're out of business.
So we've got two big businesses. We've got the NCAA and we've got the National Football League. Okay? They both reap the benefits of the current system
Right?
that I think most people will recognize as kind of screwed up, to be honest with you. I think it is.
No argument here.
Yeah. So what's the future like? Because I really don't understand why the National Football League hasn't figured out that they could absolutely be back in business the week after the Super Bowl with a developmental league for all those free agents, all those non-drafted kids that are out there, the Tim Tebows of the world, okay, would have a place to play, and there would be a professional league. And I think ultimately you'd see what happens in basketball in the NCAA happen in football, so that the kids would come for 1 year in college football and then move on to the developmental league. But at least it wouldn't be under the table. It wouldn't be. It would be above the table. Everybody's getting paid here. We get it. Can it happen? I don't know if it'll ever happen.
I don't see how it can.
But you don't. So you don't think football could be a year-round played sport? The NFL is pretty much August 1st, February 1st. If you're in it from the beginning to the end.
If you've got if you get deep-pocketed owners,
Which you do have.
they don't. But they
like filling them.
they don't like going in. They like taking it out.
I understand that. They've got a great thing. They've got a built-in minor league system
They're
feeding
not
their
gonna-
players.
They're not going to mess with it. They're not going to mess
Even
with it.
even if ultimately somebody came to them with a business plan and said, "Look, this is how you can actually make more money."
They don't-
Non-NFL cities having the teams, obviously.
They're not going to mess with the they're not going to look the gift horse in the mouth.
Well, of course not, because it's
The NCAA has to change. If the NCAA made it harder on them and they no longer served as a feeder system for them, then they would force the change. But until the NCAA changes,
Right.
I don't see anything. The NFL doing anything because the game of football is very different than basketball too. It's much more expensive to operate.
Absolutely.
They can only play one game a week, and
Right.
the fan interest it's highly concentrated. When we see it in college football, and we have towns that have both college and professional teams.
Yep.
There's a conflict there. You got to. I remember when I went out to Seattle. University of Washington was Pac-10 team. I had no idea who UW was.
Yeah.
I saw the hats, and it's purple and gold with the W. I said, "Oh, Williams."
People look at it and go,
Huh?
Williams?
Williams.
Ted Williams? What are you, from Boston?
No,
Right.
that's the dub. That's
the
UW.
dub.
And I had no concept because I went to BC where
Right.
we were always second fiddle to the Patriots.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
okay. We know our place.
Right, I get
and UW was huge, and the Seahawks were second fiddle to the university.
Right.
Now that's
Which is the way it is in a lot of places in
That's
America.
kind of swapped out a little bit,
Yeah.
but it was remarkable to me that a university would have that kind of draw. Well, there's a lot of towns that are like that. Like you said, but when you move away from where you don't have that conflict, you don't have that riff, the universities dominate or the professional sports teams dominate, and so that dollar spent it's easy to direct it. There's only one game in town. Right. We go to these large state universities, these land grant schools to play football with BC. You go to Penn State or you go to Ohio State, or we were at Brigham Young, many years ago. Texas A&M. You go to these massive universities, and you're pulling in game day, and it is a sea of RVs. A sea.
It's 10 times what you see at a BC game.
10
times?
maybe more money. 100 times
100
maybe.
times.
And they
Wow.
come in on Thursday and stay till Sunday.
Yeah.
And they camp out and they have campfires and they eat and they drink and they're merry. They come to the game. They have a great time. And
Do these people work, by the way?
I don't know. I don't
always
know.
wondered about that.
But you pull in, you go, oh my goodness, look at the side, look at this.
Yeah.
And the funny story, sounds like I'm picking on BC, but I'm not. The first ACC game, the head of the ACC came to the game. BC was a new entrant. And I don't recall who we were playing, but it might have been North Carolina State. But anyway, we're interviewing the chairman of the commissioner of the ACC at halftime. So he comes in and somebody whispers in my ear and says, ask him where he parked his RV. So of course they show up they got the thing. It looks like a Rodney Dangerfield job. It's got everything going. So he pulls up, we're talking, and I said, so where'd you park your RV? He goes, yeah, there's no RV parking area around here. And I said, well, no, there isn't. Where'd you park? Someplace called Cleveland Circle. I said, so you had to walk up? We had to take a cab.
Around the reservoir, right? Oh, that's so funny.
I said, okay, welcome to the ACC. Welcome to Chestnut Hill.
That's right.
But it's a different animal. It's a
Right.
different deal. But
Right.
but I think that the whole concept of having a feeder system, and there's been a lot of tries at it.
Yeah.
And all of them have come up short.
Yeah, but football's never been as popular as it is right now. And there's never been more money in it than it is right now.
Like I said, they like to put the money
I
in,
know.
not take it out.
I understand. Peter Cronan, as usual, it's a pleasure talking with you. I could talk with you for an hour, but there's somebody else who wants to get in
Jimmy,
here.
good luck in the new endeavor. And
Thank you very
this
much.
looks like a lot of fun.
It
Thanks
is.
for having me.
For Pete
to see you,
Cronan,
brother.
I'm Jimmy Young. You're watching the Proactive Business Network online. See you next time.